everyone. Welcome to On the Fringes of Sound. My name is Lars Hauer, and today we are talking with Alpha Chrome Yayo. How are you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be chatting to you. It's a real treat. I know you through the internet, but it's lovely hearing your voice and seeing your beautiful face. What a delight. So cheers for having me.
All right, so let's start off talking about your newest album, Home for Hitodama. Did I say that correctly?
I think you did. Now please don't take any of the pronunciation tips from me as gospel. That's how I've been saying it. Home Free to Dama. Yeah, cheers, man. I'm excited. It comes out very soon this week, so I'm psyched to talk about it. What do you want to know?
So right now it's currently in pre-order and there's only two tracks. You were kind enough to send me a Dropbox link with all of them though. So this is this is a fun album. So what is the name of the instrument you said? I should the because I've already forgotten it.
That's all right, man. There are quite a lot of traditional Japanese instruments on it. I mean, there's lots of weird, wonky synthesizers and ancient crumbling bits of tech, which is what I enjoy. But this one has a lot of traditional Japanese instrumentation too. I've got the shakuhachi on there. I've
That
got like
one.
a strange taishogodo synthesizer. I've got shamisen. It's got all kinds of wonderful treats on there, which has been a delight because it's a learning experience for me. These instruments, I've been hunting them down. Some of them have been gifted to me. So learning how to play them and how they're traditionally played and how I can learn how to do that a bit as best I can, or maybe learn how to play in a different way has been a delight. So yeah, I'm psyched to have those wonderful instruments on there.
So like listening to the through the album though, is like you also have like a whole lot of heavy guitars in there too. Like the third track is it kind of turns into like almost a metal track there for a second. So,
There's
I know you've got like the heavy guitars. There's a few tracks on there that are very ambient. There's some on there that are they're very Japanese RPG, which nice. So I just want to know, like, kind of what inspired this album? Like, you have a whole bunch of videos of you playing around with some really interesting, like, Japanese instruments the past couple of months. So I'm guessing those were a big part of the inspiration for this.
Dude, 100%. I mean, I guess the reason, I mean, to talk about the album itself and where it came from, the word hitodama is a Japanese word it's from Japanese folklore, and it refers to basically like a human spirit of a dead human appearing as like a kind of ghostly orb of floating light with a long wispy tail. Usually, it's basically like the appearance of a human soul to the living. And some people in some parts of Japan and some cultures think this is like a sign of ill intent. It's a bad omen, basically. Other people consider it to be a blessing, a sign of sort of excellent things to come in the future. And I got really into, at the same time as learning about more of these instruments, I got into reading about this particular bit of folklore. I liked the idea that there was no general overwhelming consensus on what these spirits are meant to mean. I thought, well, why should they? Because people are kind of complex and, appear and say things for all kinds of different reasons. So why shouldn't ghosts be like that too? So I like the idea of taking, it's an instrumental album. There are no lyrics on it, apart from some like mild screaming in the background at some points. It's basically instrumental. Right. I like the idea of each track being kind of an instrumental ghost story. And for that reason, like I was saying, each of the stories are kind of come from very different places. There's a track on there which is about kind of the last moments of the life of an elderly, lonely florist. There's another track which is the heavy one of the heavy ones you mentioned, which is about a Meiji era fisherman his life being meddled with by ancient beings and stuff. So something like the story of like a lovely old lady in her last moments is going to sound very different to a metal-tastic old ancient beings being bad type opus. Basically an excuse for me to do what I want with it, because I'm a dude who the artists I like the most personally are ones that don't really stick to one genre, and I feel like I'm musically very fickle with what I listen to and what I make as well. I think genre is something that it should less be about a box that somebody puts you in, more a thing to sort of bend and twist and stretch beyond its elastic limit. So this kind of theme of the Hidden Dhamma, these ghost stories of these lost souls, it sounded cool to me. I hope other people think it's cool too. But above all else, it means that I have a bit of scope musically to try and do what I want. And, you know, maybe some people might find it jarring going from ambient tracks to sort of, as you say, borderline metal tracks. Some of them are kind of out and out, almost black metal. But, you know, who's going to stop me? I'll do what I want.
I love that. So while we're on the topic of different genres and stuff, I kind of wanted to ask a more broad question. So when I went through your discography, you go in so many different directions for your music. I mean, you have some ambient, you have some vaporwave, a little bit of pop, jazz, and there's even a country album in there too. So I just have to ask, like, where do you get inspiration for these like various projects? Do you know what exactly you're going to do before you start doing it, or you just kind of come up with an idea and feel it out as you go?
It kind of varies, man. You know, sometimes it's a bit of both. Sometimes very much one of those things than the other. I like thinking of a concept. I mean, I'm not sure if you could consider all the stuff I've made to be concept albums, but I like, at least for myself, having a central concept. Even if that concept is something as simple as kind of, you know, ambient song is about the elements, or then sometimes it's something that's very specific, like weird song is about like a liminal golf club full of horny robots and stuff, you know. So I like having a base within the work. And sometimes it just comes from with whatever I'm obsessed with at the moment. I've got like a train-based album called All Aboard, and you know, it's kind of patently ludicrous that it came from me playing loads of train simulator games and stuff that I got more and more obsessed with, and then I got into kind of researching like Tokyo transport in general. I've never been like a train guy, but then suddenly I was a train guy, at least in my own head. I was like, well, shit, I want to do a train album. The golf one came from the reason I did a golf album. I've never played golf, but where I live, there aren't many bars around here. It's kind of, you know, it's sort of, I'm halfway between like the suburbs in the middle of nowhere, basically. There was one bar beside me, but it burnt down. I don't know whether the circumstances were suspicious or not. I don't know. But basically, there is, however, near me a golf club. So me and my friend, despite never playing golf, we thought we would join this golf club. Like, you could pay a very small fee to go there, not play golf, but be able to hang out there. So we started hanging out in the golf club just to have somewhere to have beers and stuff. I kind of got really into it. You know, I like sort of the pageantry of all, you know, like this kind of rich mahogany furniture and like green carpets with crests on it and stuff. There's something really interesting about that. You know, it seemed like a whole world that was, people were clearly passionate about it, and I liked that and stuff, but also something kind of silly about it too. So, you know, I made this album sort of set in like a fictional golf club, country club. And like, I know a lot of people thought, oh, this guy, you know, he must love golf. You know, he's celebrating. Other people thought, this guy clearly hates golf, hates golfers. It is neither of those things. It's just like a weird thing that I wanted to investigate, and a good excuse to get like a bunch of horny robots. I like having horny robots in my albums. Sometimes, not all the times.
Horny,
but other times, you know, I'm just
robot.
yeah, what could possibly be better, man?
I do have to ask though. So while you were hanging out at the golf club, did you actually play golf?
I did not play golf. I did not play golf. What I wanted to do is this was like in 2020 as COVID stuff had just started like kicking off. I really wanted to have like an album launch party there and kind of reveal myself to the golfing community. I'll say like this is kind of, it's not like I was there to have a good time, but I also felt like maybe I was being a bit of a dick, that I wasn't like taking the piss out of the golfers or anything, but I wanted to know what they thought. And I kind of, you know, had visions of them thinking this is the coolest thing ever, or also like maybe chasing me out of there with burning, not pitchforks, 9-irons. I don't know. I don't even know if that's a club, a 9-iron. I don't know. But I never got to do it. Thank you, man. I never got to do it. I do love golf video games though, and that again is a huge part of it. I'd like to try playing golf. I went to a driving range once and nearly mangled my friend's dad's club. That sounds deeply erotic, but it's not meant to be. So that was my
Nice.
one foray into the world of four.
Okay. So, all right. So you've never played golf. You didn't play golf. I have played golf. I don't think you're missing much, but try it. See what you think.
I definitely will, man. It's something
Yeah.
I'll do at some point.
So when you talk about like golf video games, do you remember the game Golden Tee with like the rollerball and everything?
Of course, man. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I love that.
All right.
We're kind of light on arcades here, but that one was always kind of, you'd see that kind of not even necessarily an arcade. Maybe you might see it in like a bar or something in a corner. I like games like that. Weird bar games. Very nice. That's a whole genre in and of itself. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. All right. So we have a whole golf album because you were hanging out at a golf club and you're like, no,
yeah, I just want somewhere safe to have beers, basically. Yeah,
right.
That's what happens. Yeah.
Okay. So can you tell me why we got Lawless?
Man, I think the reason that's the kind of the country, it's kind of like a Western movie type soundtrack, a soundtrack to a fictional
Very
Western.
spaghetti Western kind of thing, like old Clint.
Yeah, spaghetti, exactly, 100%. Genuinely, I think that happened just because I wanted to see if I could. Like, I remember putting that out. I think it was just before before my wife was about to give birth to our firstborn. I don't mean like the day before, but I mean like, it was maybe like a month before then or something. And I didn't think I was going to be making much or releasing much music then. But I was just goofing around in my studio one night. I just wanted to see if I could make a sort of at least a semi-convincing spaghetti Western kind of soundtrack, or like not even soundtrack, just a clip, like 30 seconds. I wanted to see if I could do it. I made something that I thought sounded kind of cool. I had some like mariachi horns in there and stuff, and some nice twangy guitar. I probably shared it on the internet. I think people, I can't even. I'm sure somebody said jokingly, right? Okay, when's the country and western album, or when's the spaghetti western soundtrack album? And then I thought, screw it. Yeah, why not? So I hammered that out so quickly, man. Like I bashed it out in like 5 days or something. Of all the albums that I've done, they're kind of jokey. Usually, I'm always very serious about what I do, and I put a lot into it, even when it's completely ridiculous. That one was the one that I was the most jokey about. I mean, I'm on the cover with a cowboy hat, a nice cigar. That was a very good cigar too.
Good.
And
I wonder.
Yeah, it was a great cigar. It was a great stogie. Yeah, that one I hammered out pretty quickly. I always felt weird about it because I didn't put as much time into it, and I probably didn't put as much of myself into it as my other stuff. But I like that it exists, and I like that, it's probably, of all the music I've ever done, that's probably the one that I've mostly done just to see if I could make music that sounded acceptably convincing in that realm. I think it sounds kind of cool. I've had a couple of people commission me for stuff like spaghetti western type soundtracky stuff off the back of it, which was surprising and delightful. So it's a thing that happened. Yeah.
It's a fun album. It is. It's definitely a jokey kind of album, and I mean, I have to admit, it's like I was just kind of chuckling the whole time I heard it. It's just like,
yeah. I mean, there's lots of silly stuff on it. And I like sort of the more grindhouse leaning kind of westerns. Let me have a look at the album myself, actually, so I can try.
It was actually a really cool album for me to listen to because growing up, like my dad was big into Western movies, like Silverado, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, like all of these like cheesy Western movies, and it's like just. Mwah.
Oh, cheers, man! I mean, I had a lot of fun recording some like a little skit sport, like a barroom brawl and stuff, and like I got like a closing kind of. I love like closing tracks of movies, of any kind of movies, but sort of that have detached from the rest of the soundtrack a kind of metal closing song or something, so I've got like a sort of very metal leaning track closing it called 1,000 Sunbleached Skulls, and I'm doing some growly guttural vocals and everything. I always like that. I think maybe Desperado they had a pretty rocking soundtrack anyway, but I think it maybe had like an outrageous closing metal banger from what I remember. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I just wanted to do that. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, and some of it's pretty serious, but lots of it's very silly. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As I say, I take everything I do very seriously, even when I'm being completely ridiculous about it. You should. I think it's good and right to take pride in what you do and put your all into it. Put your best foot forward, your best cowboy boot forward.
If you wondered where I was from, I have a couple pairs of cowboy boots in my.
I have one pair that I got. They're like two sizes too small for me because cowboy boots are hard to come by here. This is probably I'm sure now I could probably grab some off the internet. This was maybe like 20 years ago. Would have been a little bit more tricky to do. I wonder where they are. They are like two sizes too small for me. I remember like when I was a lot younger, wearing them to parties and having to really squeeze into them, and they made me look like I had exceptionally tiny, dainty feet. And they were very painful. And that was that's my story of being a cowboy.
Well, if you ever make your way up to Colorado, there is a country western store right down the street from me. I will take you there and help you find some boots.
Dude, I would be so into that. I'm very much interested in that. I'd be honored.
So next I have to ask about like what kind of gear that you use, right? Like I can see numerous pieces of gear behind you. You already told me you got the Ableton push right behind you. You have all these different videos that I see on Instagram. You're playing different synthesizers, guitars, and then some esoteric instruments, ones that you have to explain like, no, that's what this is called. So, I want to ask is like, as far as like electronic gear, are you mostly like hardware? I can see you have a couple of synths behind you. And then you have the Ableton push. So you obviously use Ableton because otherwise you have a fancy paperweight. So
well,
oh boy. Okay.
I'm not saying it's quite a fancy paperweight, but I mostly use Reason is my software of choice for recording,
really?
and big Reason fan. I do like Ableton for live stuff, and I mostly got the push too with a view to doing some gigs. So I had a bunch of gigs lined up sort of pre-COVID for like 2020, and then they got iced, and then life got in the way. Hope we can talk about that again later on, but that's something that maybe I'll be revisiting. And it's great. It's a cool piece of kit, but it's one that I don't use as often maybe as the rest of the stuff. But even just as a creative tool for chopping stuff up and getting a bit. It's good for lateral thinking. That's what I'm trying to say, And you're quite right. I've got like, okay, where's this roundabout? And see, the room's quite messy. I've got a whole sort of whack of there's Columbo on the wall there, and then there's a bunch of various synthesizers. I've got a whole rack-mounted setup here.
Right.
There's a lot of hardware in here. I've got like a big fan of like Roland 90 stuff. I've got the JV1080. I've got like the D05, which is like a mini version of the D50, another favorite synthesizer of mine. I've got some I've got like a Proteus 2000. I'm big in the sort of 90s kind of those sort of rumplery synths that sound kind of simultaneously so digital but kind of weirdly magically acoustic in a way that it's hard to sort of quite figure out why. I've got some more analog stuff over there. I've got like a Moog Sub-Fatty. I've got like a Prophet Rev 2, and then below that there's like a weird Casio, like a singing keyboard, which we mentioned robots and stuff. It's a really cool thing. It's called it is exactly what I said, a singing keyboard. It's kind of cool. I've got like probably can't quite see it there, but I've got a very slightly bizarre like Japanese Kodo synthesizer, which was originally designed in the 80s to soundtrack poetry readings. Shigen, I think, is the word for poetry readings. I'm not quite certain on that. As partly designed for that and partly to teach yourself sort of Kodo scales. They all work on pentatonic 5-note scales, which is to say there's a shitload of gear in here. And again, as you said, various sort of more esoteric instruments. I've got, I mentioned the shakuhachi, which is like a Japanese flute. I've got a Taisho Godo synthesizer, which is a really bizarre thing to exist. The Taisho Godo is kind of it's almost like a zither. It's kind of like a mix between a keyboard and a stringed instrument that you kind of usually strum or pluck, except it's a synthesized version of that. So it's really weird. It's got strings, literal strings that you strum. It's wonderful. It's a really weird thing. It's all over my new album if anyone wants to hear it. But you asked if I am mostly hardware based. For all this stuff that I love and use, I mean, I would say about 50% of the time, well, between 40 and 50% of the time, I got the Arturia key step, little tiny mini MIDI synthesizer, which I've covered in stickers that I love. This is what I'm using like at least 40% of the time, if not more. There's nothing wrong with wonderful software synthesizers. You know, I like hardware stuff. I like having a tangible knob to twiddle. Who doesn't? But software stuff's great. I use a lot of. I've got the Arturia keystep. I use a lot of Arturia soft synths as well and effects.
Okay.
And it's good for in Rush, you know. So it's yeah, I got a lot of stuff and it's all good.
So what's one of your you use a lot of software, so what's one of your favorite soft synths that you like to use?
Oh, that's a good point. Good question. I have Pigments, the Arturia one's amazing. It's kind of probably the most modern soft synth that I use. I mean, a lot of the soft synths I use are kind of more modeled after actual stuff. You know, there's like sort of Arturia's clone of like the CS80 and stuff, and that's great. And you get like a you know $50,000 synthesizer that I can never afford in VST form with some
right
you know modern stuff. But I also kind of like Pigments because it's not like another synthesizer. You know, I would love it if some kind of hardware version of it existed, but it doesn't. And it's just like a whole. It's great for sound design and stuff. It's sort of it just feels like I'm on a different planet in a weird way as compared to other synthesizers that are kind of, you know, more traditionally modeled to be like a piece of hardware.
Right.
Generally, I like hardware. Generally, I like software that looks like hardware. That's the one thing that I have, which just feels like out and out. This is software, and this is why it's cool. You know, and that's cool with me. I like that.
So, Pigments. What's one of your favorite pieces of hardware, though?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably it's going to be some of those more esoteric synthesizers that we talked about. I think it's maybe because it's kind of a new thing for me. I would pick up, show you, it's all packed up now, is the Suzuki Waraku TES 100, which is the Taisho Goto synthesizer I mentioned. I know I'm throwing out a lot of words I'm not even 100% sure I'm pronouncing correctly. But yeah, it's this wonderful synthesizer that you can play it like a Taisho Goto, which, as I was saying, you sort of press keys with one hand, you strum it with the other, or you can play it kind of more like a traditional keyboard. It's got Taisho Goto sounds. It's got sort of flute sounds and stuff. It's got weird vocal sounds, so you can kind of have the strange experience of strumming an instrument and having it play sort of very sort of either vocal sounds or kind of flute sounds, kind of a bit like if you ever use like an Evo playing the guitar, but in a much more synthetic way. It's like nothing else that I've ever seen or used before. And it was a friend of mine, Summer, had told me about it and sent me a message on Twitter saying, "Shit, have you seen this? This is the coolest thing ever." And then I received one for a present, a very kind present, and it has warmed my heart.
Where did you find that thing?
My folks got it for me for a Christmas present after I had mentioned it. I think they hunted it down on like maybe eBay or Reverb or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Reverb, the eBay of musical bits. And it's just great. It's really cool. Yeah, you know, as I said, I've got loads of hardware that I love. I love the Roland JV1080 so much, just so much. I love those kind of those crystalline 90s tones that also sound, as I was saying, kind of weirdly acoustic. But yeah, if I'm gonna have to pick one, it'll probably be the Suzuki Taisho Goto synthesizer, because man, I've never seen anything else like it. It's the coolest thing. You should come around and play with it.
Oh, I would love to. That looks fun.
Man, you're welcome anytime.
So if I ever make it to Northern Ireland, I'll definitely be hitting you up.
You got to do it, man. You have to do it.
And then you can come to Colorado Springs and I can get you to the Country Western store for boots.
Man, amazing. Absolutely amazing. We'll go to the golf club. You can show me how to not mangle the club.
I'll do my best. I'm not a great golfer,
Thanks,
but I'll do my best. So it's only February right now, and we have a whole lot of year left. So what do you have planned for this year in terms of music, shows, or maybe even some of those juicy shots of you cooking at home? Because your clips make me hungry sometimes. Like,
oh,
man,
like,
oh, he's playing his keyboard? No, he's cooking. Like, oh.
Oh man, that's extremely kind of you. Yeah, I love to cook. I love to cook for people, especially if I'm making something just for myself. You know, it's okay, but cooking for other people is my favorite. That would be dreaming. In terms of the rest of the year, mostly, I mean, I know I've released a fair amount of music in the past couple of years, but basically the past 2 years, I've been spending the vast majority of my time that I can making some video game soundtracks. which I'm really excited about. I can't talk about them too much because I'm still under NDA, and I can't really
What are
say
they
anything
gonna
about them.
do? Sue you or something? Come on, man.
I can't do it. I can't do it. But I can say that there should be some announcements in in the not distant future. Anyway, I'm really excited. So that's the big thing for me.
Okay.
It's been something I've loved doing so much. I really want to do more of. It's just a dream come true. So that's the big thing. I've got this new album coming out this week, Home for Heated Dama. Beyond that, in terms of my own music, I don't really know what I'm gonna do next. I'll have to see where my whims carry me. But you mentioned live stuff. That is something I'm very keen to do this year. I've got a couple of irons in the fire, but maybe some live gigs and stuff. Probably not far from the UK or anything at this stage, but hey, who knows? And that's going to be cool. It's going to be, I've done, like, as I mentioned, I had a bunch of live dates lined up in 2020. Then COVID kicked off. That all got canned and life got in the way. And I wasn't able to rebook stuff afterwards because I've just had to do the other thing, the soundtracks and everything, and having a kid. But that's something I very much really want to do this year. I like the idea of trying to translate some of the more esoteric and weird stuff that I do onto a stage. Will I try and play some live sax or live shakuhachi? Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I've done a few live streams and stuff, mostly from in here. I've loved doing it, man. It's great fun. So yeah, I'll probably do. I might do another live stream show soon. I've always wanted to do one from like a forest or something. So I might just do a super stripped back, semi-acoustic, sitting by a river type live stream. I don't know.
Oh, as long as
it might happen.
Sweet, sweet field recordings. I want to hear birds. I want to hear water.
Oh man,
great
stuff. Yeah, I couldn't resist. Yeah, I'll go full. I'll go full Zelda. I'll go full JRPG.
Oh, beautiful. Also, I don't know if you would be interested in doing this, but maybe a 90s R&B album, something in the style like Boys to Men, All for One, all that fun stuff.
Oh man, I would love that. I adore sexy 90s R&B. I think the closest I ever got to it was I've got like a bath themed album called Soaking. It begins to stray into that kind of territory a little bit, but I think at some point I definitely going to lean really hard into it, and see what kind of 90s sensuality I can come up with. That would be great, man. I got to get my my boy band rap persona on. I want to be the bad boy.
Oh, you got to get like a nose and like an ear piercing, just like that nostril and the one ear.
That's a classic look. That's an old-timer right there.
All right. So where can people find you online? I know you are on Threads, Instagram, and the platform nobody likes to mention, but I'll still call it Twitter.
They're the big hitters, man. Yeah, of those, I'm probably most active still on Twitter because I just have, or X or whatever we want to call it on this particular day of the week. No, that's okay. I don't think I ever have, and I can't see why anyone would. Yeah, they're the main places. Aside from that, Bandcamp is my musical home online. I mean, I've got some stuff on Spotify and everything. I just don't really. I can't bring myself to give a shit about Spotify. I just can't. I'm very happy for anyone listening anywhere, but Bandcamp is my musical home. It's where all my music lives there, as opposed to the streaming sites having some stuff. And there's loads of extras on my Bandcamp too. From I've got extra tracks. I've got sort of weird podcasty things, bonus artwork, all the good shit.
A cookbook, guys. There's a cookbook.
There is a cookbook. I nearly forgot. Yeah, a real PDF cookbook with my own home recipes, and they're all my recipes with the exception of a tiramisu recipe from my mother. That's the most delicious tiramisu in the world. Apologies to any Italians who might disagree with that, but my mum's tiramisu kicks ass. And actually, I have some of it in the fridge, which I might have for a late night supper here. Nice creamy, boozy supper.
Oh, I'm jealous. All right. All right. And Bandcamp, real easy, just alphachromeyayo.bandcamp.com. And on all your social media sites, it's just Alpha Chrome Yayo across the board, right?
That is it, dude. On all of them. Yeah. On the whole lot. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining me here. It was awesome to finally meet you. Get to hear about all the stuff you have coming up. Definitely looking forward to that 90s R&B album. It's going to be beautiful. Um, but again, thanks for joining me.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for anyone listening, and thank you personally as well for all the wonderful things you make and do, Lars. You are very much a very cool dude, and I'm delighted to know you.
You are too kind.